Okay, are we ready? Hey everyone, and welcome to another JavaScript game made specifically to practice our JS skills. So if you want to do that, or you simply just want to game a Connect 4 and want to try code along, then please go for it. It's gonna be fun. Now, if you watched my videos before, you will know that we don't really do styling in these. These are videos just for you to practice your logical thinking, which means it's gonna look ugly, but hey, that part is gonna be totally up to you. I want you to take the game, make it your own, level it up, it's yours. This is essentially what we're gonna end up with by the end. So, like I said, super basic. Now, for those of you who perhaps have never played Connect 4 before, let's actually go through how we're gonna solve making this game. So, of course, we're first gonna make our grid. We are then going to make a event listener listen out for onclicks. And on the click, it's gonna put either player 1 or player 2's piece. Now, we can't put the pieces anywhere on the board, right? Because, gravity, they have to sink to the bottom. So if you want to go in a square that perhaps you can't go in, we're going to have an alert that tells you you can't go there. You, of course, win Connect 4 by having 4 dots all in a line. So that's horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. So we're going to be doing that part as well. Now, here's my favorite part. When you have finished your game, please do share it with me. I would absolutely love to see how you have taken this tutorial, taken the game, and really made it your own. So, if you want to put like Batmans on your coins, then please do. If you want to make the grid bigger or have some sort of like level up feature when you go to the next level, then please go ahead and do that. Share your game with me on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, whatever you wish. Okay, what are we waiting for? Let's do it. As always, please do like and sub to my channel, as it really does mean that I have the means to keep creating more content for you guys. So let's do it. Okay, so let's do it. As you can see here, I've already have my project set up with an index HTML file, an index JS file, and a styles CSS file, which we now have to hook up to work together. I have gone ahead and put in some HTML boilerplate for us. We have a title, which no, will not appear in the browser. It will, however, appear in the tab, which I'll show you later, and a link tag so we can link our style sheet. Now, as our style sheet is in the root of our project, I simply have to write styles CSS to hook it up. I'm also going to put in a script tag, and if you know me, I'm going to show you 2 ways to put in the script tag. We can put in a script tag at the bottom of our body. So if I just put a script tag with the source, and once again, it's in the root of our project, so the index.js file. So that is what our script tag is linked to. I'm just going to put a char set as well. Whoops. So char set, that one, thank you very much. Now, if you know me, I will now tell you that you can put your script tag at the bottom of the body, but make sure that is after any HTML that we want to put in, or alternatively, you can also put it in the header, so in the head. I'm going to just put it here just to show you another option, because we can also use a DOM content loaded. We can use an event listener to listen out for once everything here is loaded. And some people say that is a more foolproof way, so I'm going to show you how to do it now. As always, the option is up to you. If you prefer to use the script tag at the bottom of your body, that is fine. Just don't use both, otherwise you'll have 2 scripts running. So I'm just going to leave mine here because I want to show you how to do this. You can also use the document and use add event listener to listen out for when the DOM content has loaded. Okay, and then once it has all our JavaScript, we're going to put in between these 2 little curly braces. Okay, done. Now, let's move on. Now, because I want this to be a sort of beginner lesson, we could use JavaScript to add all these divs for our Connect 4 game, but I'm just going to keep it very simple and put them in here in our HTML. So our Connect 4 game is going to be 7 squares wide and 6 squares high. Okay, but I also want to put in like a secret 7 squares at the bottom because we want to tell our browser where the bottom of the grid is. And this is just a solution that I thought of. Of course, like you don't have to use it, but this is just the way that I would solve it in order to build our game. So what's that? 7 times 7 is 49. Let's do it. I'm going to make a div that I'm going to give the class of grid because this is where all the magic's going to happen. This is going to be our game grid. Okay, so let's call it a class. Now, any div that I'm going to put in here, I essentially want to be or represent the little squares on my Connect 4 game. So as I said, I'm going to need 7 times 6 for the game, but then a secret 7, which we will go into later. So I need 49 of these. So I'm sort of just going to paste 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of course, like I said, we could do this in JavaScript. I do add these divs with JavaScript in a lot of my other games. So if you want to check out how I do that, it's a create board function that I use pretty generically. Please go ahead and check those out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 50 divs. I'm just going to get rid of the last one to make it 49. Okay, now I did say I wanted the last 7 to have represent the end of our, Connect 4 board. So I'm just going to give them a class of taken. Again, you will see why later on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great. So we've got a div with a class of grid with 49 divs in it. Now let's actually style it up to see it visually. So because we want to grab the grid, I'm going to grab the class. So use a dot for class of grid. And I'm going to decide that I want all my squares to be 20 by 20 pixels, which means that I need to make the grid. Well, let's first give it a border of 1 pixel solid. And as a default, it's going to appear black, solid 1 pixel black. And then height, I'm going to go with 120 pixels, of course. And then width, 7 times 20 is 140 pixels. Okay, and now while I'm here, I'm also going to style every single div inside the div with the class of grid. And I can do so like this by once again grabbing the class of grid. And then every div inside of that, so that's how I would write that, is going to have the following styling. I just want them to be height 20 pixels and width 20 pixels. Now I'm just going to give a background color for now so we can see what's going on. So now if I just copy copy the path, and then go to a browser and paste it, you will see there's my grid and there are all the squares. But they obviously doesn't look right? We need the squares to fit in the grid. So I want them to sort of like snake over. So I'm going to do this by adding display flex. So now if I show you what that looks like and just refresh, refresh. Okay, now they're in there, but they're all squashed. Look how thin they are. I don't want that. I want them to snake over. So I'm also going to use flex wrap. And there we go. Okay. So now, I think we've got too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we have too many, but that is fine. 7 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we need to delete 10 more. 10 of these. Let's delete 10. We did a few too many. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Delete. Okay, great. So now they all fit. If I just go over the 1, 2, you will see how they are snaking over. And then, of course, we have the last 7, which have the class of taken. So they're outside of my grid, and we're just using them to let our code know that this is the bottom of the Connect 4 board game. Is that a board game? You know what I mean, game. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of the background color blue. And while we're here, I'm going to add a class of player one. I'm going to give it a background color of, let's say, red, and then a border radius, because I'm going to make them circles of 10 pixels, because border radius on a 20 by 20 square is going to make this a circle. So we've got player one, and let's make player two. Let's make player two blue. Okay, cool. So we've got everything we need. Now let's start picking out elements from our HTML and our JavaScript so we can work with them. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually pick out the squares. So I'm going to save them as squares. I'm going to use document query selector all, thank you, tab 9, to pick out, and once again, this is going to be useful because we just learned this, to pick out all the divs inside the div with the class of grid. So that's how I would do that. So we've just picked out all the squares. Now I also want a way to, I guess, tell the user whose go it is. So I'm going to use an h3 tag for this. And I'm just going to write the current player is player. And then I'm going to use a span tag to just interrupt that h3 tag. And I'm going to hard code a 1. And I'm just going to use an ID just in case we want to use another span, right? So I'm just going to put current player. And while we're here, I'm also just going to put a place we can show the result. I'm going to leave it empty for now and just give an ID of result. Okay, so that's looking good. And in here, let's also pick out the result. So const result equals document query selector. I could use get element by ID, but it's totally up to you. I'm going to use query selector to look for an ID. So we use the hash for ID. We're looking for the ID of result. And another ID we need to pick out, which is the display for the current player. So I'm just going to display current player equals, once again, we get the document, whoops, and I'm going to use query selector again, just to make everything consistent. I'm going to look for the ID and save it for our JavaScript. Okay, we also need to let our JavaScript know who the current player is, and we hard-coded 1, so I'm just going to put this here 2. I've used a let, as this will not always be 1, it might be player 2, so that's why I used a let there. Okay. Now, I think the next thing I want to do is add an onclick to all our squares. Okay, so I want essentially something to happen every time I click any of the squares in our connect for grid. So I'm going to use a for loop for this. Oops, making sure that I'm in the curly braces. For let I equals 0. And now, because we're dealing with the squares, I could use the square's length. That will mean even including all the taken squares. And I think that's fine. Let's just carry on and see what happens. Okay, so for each of the squares in my grid, sorry, I want to get the squares. And then for each one, because we're looping, so I'm going into the array and I'm looping, I just want to add an onclick. And then on the click, and we need a function, so I just use an arrow function. For now, I'm just going to make an alert that says, you have clicked square. Just so we can see what's happening, I want to show you. So I'm just going to use the I and save. Now let's refresh. So if I click here, oops, you have clicked square 13. Let's refresh. I'm going to click the first one. You have clicked square 0, because as you know, we start arrays from 0. Okay, so this is working. We have added an onclick to each of these squares, including these ones, but for now, let's just ignore it. We'll decide what we want to do with that later, but I think that's fine. Cool. It's pretty fun, isn't it? We know exactly which square we have clicked. Okay. Okay, so we actually don't want this alert. I've just done that so you can see what's going on before me coding any further, because I think that is important. Okay, so delete. Well, the first thing that we want to do is decide how we're going to solve this. So obviously in Connect 4, when you drop the little token, we need to account for gravity, right? So I think let's do it that if the square below your current square that you want to go is taken, you can go on top of it, right? Simple. So that's why we added the class of taken at the very bottom, because at the moment we're going to write something that says you can only go on that bottom, so only on this row, because all of these have the class taken. So if the square below your current square is taken, you can go on top of it. Cool. I'm just going to minimize this because we don't need it. So how do we write this in code? If we go into our squares array, I'm just going to use I, but I'm going to add 7 because I want to check what's directly below the current square that we are at. So we do that by adding 7 to the index number of it. And then if that square class list contains taken, well, we can go, right? So I would do it like, oops, this. So if that is true and the square directly below us is taken, if the current player equals player 1, thank you, tab 9. If the current player equals player 1, don't know why it keeps formatting like that, I don't like it. Well then to that square, so once again that square, I'm going to add the class list. I'm going to add taken for one, because it's obviously taken. But I'm also going to add, so square list, class list, add player 1. Okay. And then of course we want to change it to player 2. So current player equals 2. And then let's display it. So display current player inner HTML. And let's just display whatever the current player is because we've just changed it to 2. So let's actually show that visually to our user. Okay. Click. Okay, cool. It's changing. Okay, now it's player 2's go. So we can't do anything. So now let's write some logic for if it's player 2. If current player equals 2, well then essentially I'm just going to copy this really because we're doing the same, but just we're going to add player 2 and then change it back to player 1. Cool. And then I'm also just going to add an, like an else, because we've got these if this, or we could just, we might have to do an else if, I think we might have to do that. Okay, yes, we might have to do that. Else if, else alert, can't go here. Okay, so now, change to player 2, player 2 goes. Now it's player 1 again. Woo! Player 2, oh, can't go there, where's my alert? Where's my alert? It's annoying. What did I do? Ah, right, I put it in the wrong place. Else if, alert. Okay, so now 1, can't go here, can't go here, but player 2 can go there. Can player 1 go here? Yes, it can. So awesome. So that's why I did the else if. If I just got rid of this and just did an alert, well, obviously, yes, I know I can't go there. I can click here. It'll just tell me I can't go there even though I can, because it's sort of like executing this and then executing that anyway. So that's why I did else if, else. Cool. Okay, so we've done that part of the logic. The last thing I need to do is check the board for wins. So I'm going to do that with a function. This I do actually want to execute every time we click. So there's no need for else if. We just want to check the board every time we click on a square. So now let's write our function. I'm going to do it up here, of course, because we need to write it. We need to write the function before we use the function. So function check board, like so. Now, this might not be like the most, I guess it's a lazy way to check for wins. I mean, if you want to, I guess, make this cleverer, please do and share it with me. I just couldn't be bothered. It's a small board, right? So I've just gone ahead and figured out all the winning combinations on it. So please feel free to take this. I'm going to obviously put it in my GitHub, but I've just got a winning arrays array. Again, if I've got any wrong in here, I'm sorry. Let me know. But const winning arrays. And there we go. So I have literally just pasted all the possible winning arrays. So by using my index number, of course, on our board. Once again, if you can think of something clever, then please do. I'm really lazy. This was fine. Okay, so we've got our winning arrays. Now let's actually use them in order to check our board if any of the players have a winning array. So to do this, well, again, I'm just going to use a for loop. So for this time, let we can use I, we can use Y, like it's totally up to you, whatever you want. Okay, so as long as Y, I'm going to get the winning arrays length. It's going to loop over. But we're going to loop over each one of these, right? We're not looping over this. We're just looping over 1, 2, 3. Each of these, so however many of those are, that's however many times we're going to loop and increment by 1. Now, it's always, I think it's always important to use const as much as possible. We don't want to use a let. This is blocked scoped. So that's why I'm using a const. We're going to save, for each time we loop, we're going to save square 1, square 2, square 3, square 4. So I'm literally just going to name it square 1, squares. For the square 1, we're going to go into the squares array this time. So it's const square 1. Well, let's just say we want to get the index 13. We need to go into our squares array, and then I'm going to literally pass through. So I'm going to go into the winning arrays and go into the, so I'm going to loop over the first one. So let's just say we're doing our first loop. I'm going to grab this. So I'm going into the winning arrays, going into the array, and I'm grabbing this, and then I want to get the first item from it. So I need to pass through a 0. So that is how I would do that. And whatever that is, I'm saving as square 1. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I'll talk you through it again. We now need to get square 2. So what I would do is, of course, we're checking on our squares grid. So if I've just checked this square on our board with index 0. So for example, let's go back to our board. Say I want to check, this is what we're checking. We're checking square with index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're checking those. So of course, I would then need to go into my squares array. I'm going to go into it, and then I'm just going to pass through this value. So I need to now get this value, which is a 1. So I need to go into my winnings array. This is an array. So Y still, because we're still in the same one, so whatever Y is going to be the same for this. So winning arrays. And then I need to get the item with index 1, so 0, 1. So this will return. All of this essentially is returning back 1, the number 1. Okay? So I'm going into the squares array. I'm going into the squares with index 1. Okay, so hopefully you get that. I'm just going to carry on. If you don't, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to explain further. And one more, of course, because we need to check for 4 matches. And there we go. So we are looping, we're grabbing all 4 squares that we want to check. Okay, so now we want to check those squares to see if they all have the class of player 1. Okay, so if I mean, this is probably the easiest way to do it. I'm gonna go if squares 1. I mean, we could do another loop, but it's only 4, so I don't think it's worth it. But please feel free to do another loop if you wish. I'm just gonna go squares class. If that first square that we picked out, if it has a class that contains, contains player 1. So if that is true, and the second square contains player 1, how do I do this so it looks neat? There we go. And the third square contains the class of player 1, and the fourth square contains a class of player 1. And if all that is true, well then we want to get our results that we picked out. Or is it result? Whoops, don't want that. I think it was result. Okay. We want to get our result and use inner HTML to say player 1 wins. Okay. And of course, I mean, let's just copy this for player 2. Just make sure that that's an if statement. I'm just going to copy all of this actually. So we have the pseudocode as well. Oops. Okay, if, I'm just going to use Command D. 2. Player 2 wins. Okay, I think that's all we need. Whoops, we did this outside of our for loop. So I'm just going to get all of this. Right, here's our function, okay. But then we need to actually put all of this inside. Okay. Just going to make sure if, then this, oops, then otherwise this. So that is our loop. Great. I'm just going to format this a little bit better. So just go Command. So just tab it out and click Save. And there we go. So now we play the game. Just need to make sure we can only add players if that space is not currently taken. Okay, now let's play. So now we play the game. And we get a 4, so there we go, 3, 4. Ta-da! We have now finished our game of Connect 4. You will see that the game works. Okay, so that is how I would build a game of Connect 4 in a super simple way. Please do feel free to take this game, make it your own, style it up, give it extra levels. If you could think of a funky way to not have to write out all the winning arrays, then please do let me know. Like I said, I was pretty lazy with this and I just stuck them all in there because I thought, you know, like it's a small grid. Thanks so much again for watching, and I do really want this to be a conversation, so yeah, please do show me your games. Okay, nice. Later.